What's good, everybody? It's your boy back with another reaction video, and I will be reacting to three disturbing true ice cream truck stories. I figured I'd get back into looking at some horror stories. It's getting close to October. I figured I'd do some spooky narrations, and I've been wanting to get back to. I've had like a bunch of videos that I downloaded from YouTube on my computer, and I've had them on here for months, and I haven't done anything with them. I actually kind of forgot I had them, so I opened the file. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot I got a file for these horror stories or the narrations. Same thing, and I had I think like 20 videos or something. Some of them I reacted to before, and I forgot to delete them, so out of there. But yeah, so I figured, oh, what the hell? And this was recommended to me last night. Came out recommended on YouTube, so I was like, oh, I watch it. And ice cream, it's funny because when I was a kid, ice cream truck come around, you hear that ice cream sound. It always came around when I was over my grandmother's house, and she still lives in that area, but it sounded rough neighborhood in Chicago, and I remember it actually happened a few times, but one particular time it was really close and we saw the actual car come spin around the corner. It was a drive-by, and all of a sudden you hear pop, 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 and a lot of times you never know whether it's, especially in Chicago, whether it could be a shooting or it could be somebody popping fireworks. That happens all year round, even where I live, I live in a suburban area, and most of my people who live at least on my street are retirees. and and you hear pop pop, you hear just pops, and I know, I mean, I've heard enough. I know the sound now of fireworks and gunfire, but like when I was a kid, I didn't know, I just heard popping, and especially in my grandmother's neighborhood, like you never know. But I remember that one time that car, you could hear it, and that car came spin around the corner. Somebody was hanging out of it, and they sped past, and then police came, literally like 3 seconds behind them when they passed our house. Police came spinning around that corner too, and it's funny because the police almost hit another car that was parked in the street, because cars can park on the in the street, like on the sidewalk, your parallel park, and he almost, and the car who the drive by made a perfect drift and like kept going, and a police car almost hit hit the car. It went so far to the other side of the road, almost hit the car on our side of the road, even though it was coming towards us. And I remember, I think my dad said, because he had standing there, because he grabbed me when he heard it. He was like, afterwards, he said, don't they do defensive driving? It's like, why he almost hit another car. The game, well, we assume a game ever. It did a perfect drift, but the cop almost hit the other car. But yeah, I've never had any like issues, at least with, because that was the same ice cream man for years. I think he passed away a few years ago. That was more than a few years. I think it was like 10 years ago. But he was a black guy, and I never had any creepiness with him. No one ever thought like he was, pedophile or anything. I mean, you see that and stuff. I mean, hell, they had. I remember in if anyone's seen Spawn, the HBO series, I don't know if it was in a comic book. It might have been a comic book, but I haven't read every single Spawn comic book. But I remember in that show, and it was like a senator's son who, like, I don't know if he was raping them or just killing them, but he was killing small children, and he pretended to be an ice cream man to get him to come get in his truck, and he ended up fucking with Spawn's daughter, and taking her and Spawn went on the warpath looking for that motherfucker. But anyway, let's get into this. I don't want to talk too much. At least before the video. Hold on, is it recording? I hit record. Okay. So I make sure it's recording. Alright, here we go. Pick the creepiest looking picture you can find.
Growing up in the suburbs, one thing I always enjoyed in the summertime was the ice cream truck, specifically Mr. Softy. As a very little kid, anytime I'd hear the song of the Mr. Softy truck echoing through the streets, I'd beg my mom for a few dollars and run outside to wave down the truck. I remember one of the first times I was ever left home alone. I was, I think, 7 years old. My mom was away somewhere and my dad was off that day. He apparently entrusted me to be home alone for a few minutes while he ran to the store. He was definitely the less responsible parent.
How old did he say he was?
Watching SpongeBob, I'm pretty sure, when I heard the familiar sound of the Mr. Softy tune outside. I rushed to the kitchen and climbed onto a chair to reach the little basket on the ledge that usually had stray dollars and coins inside. I grabbed a dollar bill and some coins. I couldn't tell you the exact amount, obviously. I ran outside to the street and waved the truck down just in time. It pulled over, and the oldish man came to the window asking what I wanted. When I asked for a specialty cone, he told me I was a little short with the money I had. I believe I told him I didn't have any more money because my parents weren't home. I distinctly remember him asking me, "You're home alone?" As if he were confirming it. I said yes, and he started acting all friendly.
That's a booty right for the picking.
He told me to come into the truck so that I could make my own ice cream cone. I stepped into the truck, and the man went and shut the door.
If he said he's 7 or something,
he told me to help myself to
but
whatever ice cream I wanted.
If he's 10 or older,
he was going to show me how to be an ice cream man.
You're an idiot.
He went to the driver's seat of the truck and started driving us somewhere. My young, innocent self thought this was all super exciting as I was pouring soft serve ice cream into a cone. But I finished that cone and then started wondering where we were going, as we had been driving for a while. I went to the front of the truck to ask him.
Preoccupied you with the ice cream.
Stern voice than he'd been speaking in to please go stay in the back of the truck. I listened to him. My appetite for more ice cream was suddenly gone as I got more uncomfortable.
Just jump out the truck.
Busy main road to a quiet residential road. At some point, I noticed the ice cream truck's music wasn't playing, and he was driving rather fast. The truck finally stopped in front of some abandoned-looking building.
And
he asked me to come follow him outside to the building. But not before we heard a tapping on the door of the truck. I heard a familiar, concerned voice yelling through the crack of the door. The man opened the door.
This is dead.
And my neighbor Margie walked into the truck.
Okay.
She saw me and came to grab me by the arm and pull me out of the truck. She told me to wait in her car while she ran back to yell at the man.
Yell at the man? Call the police.
Confused at first. The man in the ice cream truck sped off down the street. This was a time before cell phones. She couldn't just call 911 right away.
Oh, okay.
She ran to the nearest house. At first I was confused, but obviously I know now she was asking for the owner's phone. She called 911, and I'm sure she reported the suspicious ice cream truck and attempted kidnapping. I don't remember the rest, except telling Margie my story, her driving me home to be greeted by my dad and cop cars, and then being told to go inside after telling a couple police officers what happened. The exact ice cream truck was found. I'm not sure how they did it. Maybe by investigating street camera footage and getting the plate number. I was made to confirm the driver was in fact the man who took me into the truck.
Wait a minute, they ain't have... This is a time before cell phones, but they had street cameras?
I don't think they know his name. Either that or they didn't want to give it to me. Definitely not a memory I like thinking back on.
Yeah, you almost got fucked up. You almost had a real fucked up childhood.
Up until I was 28, I used to live with my parents in Camden, Maine, a rural boat town. They were hardly ever home because of work and just traveling a lot, so I'd hold down the fort a lot. My parents' property is large and private, so when they weren't home, I'd often throw little parties. This was one of those nights. I had maybe 15 to 20 people over, and we all hung out in the
Like,
back.
how old is he now,
It started
or
around
in the
6
story?
p.m. and people
Because he
started
said he
leaving
lived with
around
him until he
11
was
p.m.
28. So
By midnight, everyone was gone, and I was absolutely shot from a mixture of having been in the sun most of the day and then drinking since around 6. I changed and got into bed.
because he could be a
Before I could
teenager
even fall
in this.
asleep, though,
Just because he's
I
drinking
heard
don't mean
something one
anything.
would not expect to hear this late at night. It was the sound of an ice cream truck, only it was a tune I'd never heard before, a kind of creepy sounding one. The tune got louder until it seemed to be right outside. I lay there waiting a minute or two for it to go away, but when it didn't, I finally got up and went to the window to look outside. I couldn't see anything from my bedroom window, so I went downstairs and looked out the living room window. I could vaguely see what had to be an ice cream truck out on the lawn. My heart started pounding the inside of my chest. Who was it? Why were they here? What did they want? I paced around the living room for a bit, not knowing whether to call the police or my dad, or just simply wait for them to leave. The awful tune of the ice cream truck didn't stop though. It was sickening. I
Weird.
ended up finally snapping and going out the front door to the porch. There, I could more clearly see the ice cream truck parked on our property, like a little less than 100 feet away from the porch. It was parked on the grass, and it wasn't exactly a typical looking ice cream truck. It was like a white van with ice cream pictures stamped or painted on. I was a mix of confused and worried, mostly worried. Saying it was an abnormal sight would be a gross understatement. I stepped onto the grass with my bare feet and walked just a little closer to the van.
Why?
The headlights weren't on, so when I got close enough, I saw there was no one in the driver's seat. When I got even closer, I saw one of the sliding doors on the side was open. I suddenly felt as though I could be jumped at any second.
They lowered you out there and you fell for it.
And then ran back inside the house.
They in the house already.
Now I did call 911, and I asked them to please hurry. The woman asked me to walk around the house and check to make sure everything was locked. I started from the main floor and worked down to the den to the back door, and the glass panel on the back door was shattered.
Oh
It was
boy.
unlocked and opened. I whispered this to the 911 operator, even though I was truly freaking out inside. She told me to go to a room with a lockable door and wait there until officers arrived. So I tiptoed to the nearest bathroom and locked the door. The operator told me to stay on the line and be quiet. A few moments later, someone on the other side of the door tried turning the doorknob. Then they banged on the door 3 times. The woman on the phone said quietly that she heard it and for me to remain quiet and calm. Then I heard the back door to the house slam shut, and half a minute later, the tune of the ice cream truck slowly faded away as the van was driven off. I told the woman, but she said to wait until officers arrived.
Yeah, don't
It
leave.
took a disgustingly long time to arrive. I was waiting in that bathroom for another 5 minutes. If they arrived in a timely manner, they could have caught whoever was at my parents' house.
5 minutes.
Instead, all that happened was I got a police report. My personal theory is the ice
Like,
cream truck tune was supposed to be a distraction or something.
He
while
said
one of the people
disgustingly
broke
long
into the
time,
house.
and then 5
I'm
minutes
sure
later,
there were more than one person in that van. I'm happy this happened to me when I was
you live out in
23 and
bumfuck
say 10
Maine
years
somewhere.
old, because that would have traumatized me.
It could take a long time. I'm guessing he was. He said traumatized. I'm like, I don't think he'll be. Well, I guess you could still be.
Until around high school. There was this ice cream truck that would always drive down my block once a day in the warmer months. The driver got to know me on a
Sound
more
more
personal
familiar.
level. He knew my name and I knew his, Bernard. I'd go outside for ice cream so often that he'd slow down or sometimes even stop for a minute in front of my house waiting for me to come outside, knowing I was a frequent customer. Anytime I'd buy ice cream from his truck, I'd always get the same.
I've
Oreo
never
ice
seen
cream
an
cup.
ice cream man
He'd
stop
always
like
stop
that
and
in my
talk to me
house.
for a few minutes, and sometimes he'd give me
Unless
free
you
ice
come
cream.
out of your house and stop them,
There was this one
and they
Friday,
see you.
though, and I remember it was a Friday because it was the start of the weekend that my parents were going away. On this Friday, Bernard once again passed my house, and it was one of the days that I went outside to buy from him.
Motherfucker's name is
On
Bernard.
this day, though, he gave it to me for free again, and because of that, I stuck around and chatted with him for a while. He asked me how things were going and whatnot, and I told him I was excited to have the house to myself for the weekend. He was surprised that I would have the house to myself at such a young age. He said I was lucky and to enjoy. Then he drove off, and the truck eventually disappeared along with the music. The rest of the story is the part that you may not even believe. I stayed up late in my room because my parents weren't home. I was playing video games on my computer when I heard the sound of Bernard's ice cream truck. It didn't start from the distance and slowly get louder.
Bernard.
It literally seemed to turn on right outside my house.
That's
I
creepy.
went to my window and saw the truck right outside.
You would think he want to be a little
music
bit
at this late hour in the night,
like
past midnight.
inconspicuous,
Bernard.
but he turns on
What was
his
he doing?
lights and
The
music.
music suddenly stopped, and the truck's lights turned off. I opened my window a crack just to listen for what might be going on. Just the sound of crickets, until I saw Bernard appear from the darkness, quickly approaching my window, yelling, "Jimmy." He stopped when his face basically banged into my window, and he started telling me to come outside.
Okay, this
He
dude's
told me I
crazy.
could get all the free ice cream I wanted, but the way he was speaking, he seemed off. He seemed like he was on something. His movements were spastic and sporadic.
He's high or some
He then
shit.
tried pulling my window further open aggressively, and I screamed and yanked it closed. He started knocking on the window, and I screamed and begged him to leave or I'm calling the cops. When I said that, he turned around and ran back to his truck. The lights turned back on.
What do you think was
and he
gonna
drove
happen?
off into the night without the music playing.
Okay, I'll come
I was
out.
so scared
Like,
I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to call my parents, and I was scared to call the cops. I just locked my bedroom door and tried to go to sleep, but it was a long night before I fell asleep. Bernard never returned to my block after that, but anytime I'd hear an ice cream truck passing by, I'd get paranoid it was him.
oh, damn, he fucked you up. Your mind all fucked up now. That's crazy. He just runs up. Yeah, he has the way he say he was moving like spazzing or some shit. That makes me think he was high. And he's probably had some thoughts about this kid, and it's like he was high and decided he was just gonna act on him. You know, it's kind of like with his alcohol, you're on liquid courage, or you'll do things that you wouldn't normally do. It seemed like he was thinking about doing this and then acting on it. But that's because especially he said he ran up. He said he was walking really fast up to the house and just until he ran into the window. So that tells me something like dude was high. Like he's like moving all weird, you know. And anyone seen anybody high? I'm talking about like really high, or had any, you know, like me. I had some relatives who were, you know, crackheads. I hate to say that, but and they have real like they have real sporadic movements, and they scratch and shit, be like itching, and you know what it looks like. And that's what I'm imagining what he's talking about here. He just, he didn't say he was scratching, but he just like you get like a twitch and shit like that. I remember I was in Mississippi and I met my cousins, and with two of them, male and female, you could tell they were both the type that gets high on something a lot stronger than marijuana. And the guy, every time I saw, he always had like a beer in his hand. And one time, well, this actually happened a few times, but the very first time I remember, because that's when I first met them. My dad, we went over their house. Well, we went to our uncle's house, who they happened to be over at the time. And I was like, what the hell are they doing over here so early? And I was like, well, why we here so early? My dad does that. He go to people's houses. And then we go to their house, and they still in their pajamas when they answer the door. I'm like, wait, did you call them to let them know we come here? But anyway, it looked like they just woke up. But anyway, and when they was moving, he said, hey, cuz, and they were both moving like that. Like, and one, he kept like kind of like he had a twitch like his name, but the woman, she kept, almost like moving like her clothes were uncomfortable or something, and she was doing like that. And I was like, and I could tell that I was like, you grew up as a kid in a city, like you seen like, you know, crackheads or whatever in your areas, like you know what that look like. I was just like, man, y'all high early in the morning. I like what time was it? It had to be, like I said, we went over there. I think it wasn't think it was like 8 in the morning, maybe almost 9, which is still crazy to just go randomly over somebody's house. But they were up, but they, they looked like they woke up and they were sleeping in their clothes. Almost every time I saw them, they looked like that. They're either drunk or high. But that's crazy. Somebody just run and just run right into them and like, come outside. I'll give you all the ice cream you want. You come outside right now. I'm like, dude, it's late. Get the fuck out of there. And plus, he can't be in his, like, it wouldn't make sense. Because if he was trying to get this kid to come into his truck, you would think he wouldn't drive down the street with his lights on and his music, his ice cream truck, drawing all his attention. Plus, it's late. So people are like, what the hell is an ice cream truck doing out here this late? Because I remember my grandma's neighborhood. Anytime that ice cream truck, oh yeah, I forgot. I was gonna say his son, the man he passed away. I think like might have been 11 years ago. I think my mom told me his son took over and did it for a while, but I guess he stopped doing it. But anyway, anytime that when I was a kid, an ice cream truck would be out there. If he was out there, like I remember, I think it was one time he was out there around like 6 or something like that in the afternoon. Might have been 7. And I remember he was like, "What are you doing here so late?" Like, and like, people immediately start looking at like, "Why is he here so late?" Either if he was early, like I mean, really early in the morning, people like, "Why is he so early?" Because especially because kids, because that ice cream truck, that guy, he only came in the neighborhood on weekends, and usually like around well, when I went over my grandma's house, I remember my mother was getting her hair done. It was probably like around 10, 11, maybe like around 11 more. And the ice cream truck, you could hear him, because he would drive around the neighborhood, so he would make loops around the neighborhood. And that's when I used to see him. Now, one time I spent the night with my grandma's house, and he came out. I think I heard the ice cream sound like around, I think it was like maybe 9. I know it was early. Now I remember saying it was early. Cause I was outside. We was up. So we was up, helping my grandmother clean the house, and I just happened to be outside. I think I was sweeping the porch or something. And ice cream truck came around the corner, and I was like, "What the ice cream truck doing it this early?" But he usually was around like 10 or 11, and he'd drive that truck probably until about 2 or 3 before he would leave. And maybe it was because he needed more money. Maybe he would get a bunch of money. Like I see, it'd be a bunch of people up there. And like this dude, even as a kid, this guy has to make like, even back then, this was back in like the 90s. So I say he had to have made probably about a couple $1,000s. I mean, it depends. Not everybody gets the same ice cream every day, but the amount of kids that were running up to him getting ice cream. I know I would get ice cream. My grandma would give me money to get me and my cousins ice cream. And it was like, what was it? 4 of us at the time. Well, 5 including me, but it was 4 of my cousins. And sometimes my other cousins would be there. So then it would be like 8 or 9 of us, and they would just give me a bunch of money because I knew what the prices were, because I almost always went to the ice cream guest, so I knew exactly what the prices were. I even remember when he went up in price. He only went up like a quarter, and over there people were like, "Hey, ice cream," because he went up a quarter. And I think he ended up shuffling his prices because he went up a quarter on everything, but I think he started shuffling. He still kept a quarter on some things, but then he went down like 15 cents or a dime increase on other things. So I was like, a bunch of people just like, ain't paying. I was like, just an extra quarter. I think it was like something. I remember like they used to get. I think it was like 50 cents, and then it was like 75 cents. And I think the last time I went there, I went up to ice cream truck just for old times' sake. I was in Chicago, and what was I? I think I was 17. Might have been no, because I just graduated from high school, so I was 18, and I went back up to Chicago after my graduation, and I went to go see my grandma, and I just happened to hear sitting outside, and just happened to hear the ice cream truck, and I went out there just for just like for nostalgia thing, and then yeah, cause that's when he was in the truck, cause I was like, cause that's when I saw he was a younger guy, and that's my mother told me that I thought it was a new person because I couldn't remember exactly what the truck there was a van actually that looked like at the time. I was like, I don't remember if this the same guy or was a different guy, a different truck and a van. Sorry, and it was a younger guy. That's what I remember, and that's when later on my mother told me that just after he had passed away that she's like, oh, that was his son, right? Because I think he was sick at that time, or maybe he just retired or something, and his son took over. But like no one does it now. My grandma says she hasn't heard that thing, the ice cream truck in years. But unless he moved to another neighborhood, because it has gotten a lot rougher over there in recent years. But they trying. I mean, it's funny because the neighborhood's kind of going through a gentrification, but it seemed like on the side, on the other side, because it's like you can see they building up apartments and businesses and stuff, but then on the other side, still like run down houses and stuff like that. And it seemed to be worse when I'm going over there to see her than it was when I was a kid. I mean, you still had shootings and stuff, but I don't know. It just seemed worse than it was before. But even though they they build and they put, it's like they trying to put money into that neighborhood. Well, at least with businesses and apartments that probably a lot of people can't even afford to live in anyway. But yeah, your kids don't go with strangers. I know no kids are watching it. I think my demographic is like that I saw it on YouTube is telling me like 25 to 45, 44, something like that. So, but anyway, as parents, they tell your kids like don't get in cars and things with strangers. Because I remember my dad told me my dad, like I was so afraid of my dad beating my ass that I never got into some stranger's car, into a stranger's house. Like, cause my dad would be, he threatened. He's like, you do that, I find you do that, I'm gonna beat you. So I was like, I'm gonna go somewhere and he probably get molested and then come back to an ass whooping. I was like, or my dad was probably thinking more like getting killed or something like that. But my dad it was always everything was always under threat of getting my ass beat, or something I would get my ass beat because he thought I did something. But anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed my reaction. And if you did, should hit that thumbs up button down below. Sure, subscribe if you're new here. Hit that bell. You'll be notified when I upload new videos. Comment down below. Share this video. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.